George, Julianne,
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Okay, ready? Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment Hearings for Suburban Panel 2. We are a City of Ottawa quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variants to the zoning requirements and consent to sever lands. Our hearings are now in person at Ben Franklin Place, 101 Centerpoint Drive. We also enable remote participation by video conferencing for those registered speakers. We are live streaming on YouTube and the video will be made available and archived and made available for future viewing by the public. My name is Fabian Poulin. I'll be chairing today's hearings and you can address me by my name or as chair. And with me are my fellow panel members, Jay Baltz, George Barrett, Heather McLean, and Julianne Wright. The procedure for the hearing today will be as follows. Listed on the agenda and appearing on the screen from time to time are the applications we'll hear today. For the sake of efficiency, I may deal with agenda items in a different order. Panel members have reviewed the planning reports and any written submissions in support or opposition to each of the applications. Today, we'll hear any oral submissions relating to the applications. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant is requested to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing. They also had to confirm in writing that they did so, or they'll need to swear or affirm an oath today that they fulfilled the sign obligation requirements. Otherwise, we may have to adjourn or postpone the hearing. The panel may ask for a brief presentation of an application followed by questions for the applicant and the city planning staff. We will then hear from members of the public who have registered to speak, and we may also have questions for them. Finally, the applicant, who has the burden of proof, will have an opportunity to make final comments and reply. Please address your comments to me as the chair, starting first with your name, spelling it if necessary, and your municipal address for the record. All presentations are limited to 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at my discretion. At the end of the hearing, the panel may either make an oral decision or we may reserve our decision, which means it won't be delivered today. In either case, and within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send the official written decision and reasons for it to all parties, participants, and anyone else who has requested a copy. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure we will be following today? No questions? We have several applications to hear today, but we first need to deal with some preliminary procedural matters. Are there any declarations of interest by any panel members on this panel or any of the other panels? George, no? No declarations of interest. We now need to confirm minutes of previous hearings. So we have 2 minutes to approve. The first one I'll ask the panel to approve our November 5th minutes. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those minutes are approved. November 19th, I was not there, so I'd like to record that, but I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to approve November 19 minutes. All those in favor, please raise your hands. There we go. So unanimous. We also have some adjournment requests to look at today. First adjournment request has to do with item number 9. It is 4305 McKenna Casey and 3288 Boris O'Kane. I'm looking for a D. Ronan. Are you available? Online? Looks like.
Mr. Chair, I don't see them online.
Okay.
The applicant had requested sine die, so.
Okay,
we
so
can
I'll ask the
proceed with
panel
that.
if they'd like to approve this application to be adjourned sine die. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The application is approved, or adjourned until sine die. The other application we have today up for adjournment is item number 3, having to do with 184 Woodruff Avenue. And I'm looking for Serena Shazade or Eric Bays. I have them here as being remote. Are they online?
Yes, we have Serena online.
Ah. Hello, Ms. Shahazadad. If I said that correctly.
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you very much. I understand you'd like to have your application adjourned until January the 14th. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I'd like to ask the panel if they'd like to adjourn this application until January the 14th. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application is adjourned until January the 14th. Thank you very much.
Yep.
So that's and number 9. Okay, so now we'll look at the unopposed applications. And if it is to be an unopposed application, which we have 3 today, they have to qualify for a quick decision as follows. They must have no objections or concerns from the parties, that is the applicant, the city, or the public. No amendments required, no registered speakers. Signed posting declaration has been received. Applicant or their agent has confirmed that they agree with all requested conditions, if any, and no questions from panelists. So the first application we have unopposed is item number 2300 Fox. I'd like to ask the panel if they would approve this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That application is approved. The next application has to do with 60001 Reno. And I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to approve this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The application is approved as well. Moving on to application number 10, having to do with 23 Lakin and 99 Bill Latham. And I'd like to ask the panel if they'd like to approve this application. All those in favor, raise your hands, please. That application is approved as well. Thank you. So that's that one. Now I'd like to move a little out of order and I'd like to move into item number 8, having to do with 143 Oakridge. I'm looking for Mr. Peter Hume. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for accommodating our schedule. We're much appreciated. The issue that we'd like to bring to the attention of the committee is not necessarily the application, but one of the conditions, and that's the requirement for a stormwater management brief. Providing a grading, drainage, and servicing plan, which is fairly standard in consent applications, is not a concern of ours. But the additional hurdle of providing a stormwater management brief is quite new to the owners of the property and the clients who are going to be constructing. And we believe it flows from a problem in that neighborhood with the front yard ditches and the inability of the city to maintain those ditches as proper conduits for stormwater. So the solution to that is to come back to properties like this one and impose these conditions. And the condition in and of itself sounds innocuous, but I think it's important for the committee to understand what the implications of a condition like this are. So there's really only in small infill situations 2 solutions to a condition like this. The first is a flat roof. So if this condition is approved, we would have to redesign the homes that you see and the elevations that we provided to provide a flat roof to accommodate what the city is managing. And not only that, we believe any other application in this neighborhood would suffer the same fate if this condition was imposed. So you're really mandating flat roofs across this area. The second solution is some sort of stormwater storage in the rear yard or in the front yard. It could be tanks underground. That's an option. Unfortunately, the regulation around providing those type of solutions is incredibly onerous, and the approval prospect for something like that is difficult. It requires, submissions to the Ministry of the Environment for approval. It's 6 to 8 to 10 months in approval. And the reality is no one will do it. They'll look to other options. So which defaults back to the flat roof scenario. So we don't believe that we understand the impact, or we understand what the city's trying to get at. We believe a better solution is for the city to enforce its own drainage regulations in requiring properties to maintain their front yard drainage and their front yard ditching and not fill them in, as opposed to imposing a condition on properties like this that will drive us to revising our elevations and providing a flat roof. And that, Mr. Chair, is the basis of our objection to this condition. We don't think it's a comprehensive solution. And in fact, when we look across severances and consents in this area, we don't see a lot of this. This is a relatively new condition being imposed. And we don't think it's appropriate to focus these solutions on predominantly, well, it's going to be applications, consent applications, because that's where the city is going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to do it, or they aren't doing it when you apply for a building permit. There are other they don't have that tool. So it will be consent applications that they'll impose these type of stormwater briefs on. And we just don't think it's an appropriate condition to impose on a select group of properties or a select group of applications. If you want to solve the problem, solve it holistically. Don't force it on to on the backs of consent applications. And Mr. Chairman, my client believes that it's an inappropriate condition to be imposed. And so we leave it in the hands of the committee.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel if you have any questions for Mr. Hume. Mr. Baltz?
So this isn't just a severance, but it's also variances for a reduced lot width.
Yes,
So
correct.
I'm just wondering whether the issue of drainage problems and the chance of flooding isn't worse because of the reduced size of the lot, which is one reason why this type of application might be singled out for.
I think it's the width of the lot. It's not the lot area. The lot area, I think, meets the city zoning bylaw. But you would be correct if we were reducing the front yard ditching, which is where the stormwater is directed to. Those ditches in our grading and drainage plan are being maintained. So
I'll ask the same question of staff when we
Sure.
get to that, but yeah, thank you.
Ms. McLean, any questions? Mr. Barrett? Ms. Wright? Okay. Do you agree with all the other conditions though?
yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I'd like to ask now Elizabeth King from Planning Services to make some comments with respect to this application.
Happy to, Mr. Chair. So this file is located in the City View neighborhood, which we all know it is prone to, sorry, just give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm overcoming with a little cold there. So the City View neighborhood does have known draining issues due to the lack of stormwater infrastructure, which is why staff imposes this condition along with a grading and drainage plan to go with it. Because we do need to make sure, like, any development in this neighborhood is resulting with more lot coverage. Even like we've seen it with a few variance applications where we're having these concerns as well. So the only way to make sure that this is addressed is by providing a brief to ensure proper mitigation measures are being made. So we would like to see this condition imposed. I mean, it does go with the grading and drainage plan, which is also another required condition as well.
Can you tell me if the two solutions to this problem that Mr. Hume identified, that is a flat roof or on-site stormwater storage, are they the only two solutions to this?
Politely, Mr. Chair, I'm not an expert in stormwater management. I could not tell you if a flat roof or a peaked roof or whatever your design is, that's where your consultant who's providing you the professional feedback on your stormwater management will come in. I can't really speak to
Okay.
that.
Fair enough. Thank you. Mr. Baltz, any questions?
Yeah, I just want to direct the same sort of question, which is the fact that we're reducing the lot width having any impact on that, even though the lot area is?
No.
So why only the developments that come before us are being subject to this, while the majority of developments that are as of right on the same size lot presumably don't have to worry about this?
I would think about it in the context that in some instances, when we're reviewing other consents, they likely have stormwater infrastructure. We're dealing with a unique neighborhood where they don't have that infrastructure in place.
I meant in this neighborhood, there must be developments that are as of right that don't come before us in City View.
That I don't know. These are just conditions that are imposed by infrastructure engineering staff that we include. I know there's another file that's being heard today. It also has a similar condition as well. So that's just one thing to be mindful. And like I said, I know I've seen it with a few variance applications where we're seeing these concerns and we need to see some mitigation measures have been happening. I'm sure you guys have also heard it from like the community association when they speak on these concerns as well. So it's doing our part to make sure that like the city is seeing some kind of infiltration techniques.
Thank you.
Ms. McLean, any questions?
Just to planning staff, if this property was being redeveloped, just with being replaced, how would the stormwater be captured or addressed?
I mean, assuming it doesn't have to come to committee or a planning act application, like it's ultimately at the building permit stage where they do review the grading and drainage. I can't really speak further if they require items like that, but that's all I can really say. It would just be what they review at the building permit stage.
Thanks, Ms. McLean. Mr. Barrett, any questions?
Just a question with regards to the grade and drainage of this lot. Are there any concerns at the present time without the construction? Are there problems with the grading drainage on this site?
I believe that's what staff will be reviewing. I'm not sure if one was submitted, but that's what they review a part of the consent. We see this with all the consent applications. I'm not aware if there's any immediate concerns. I mean, if it was, then we would be having a concerns report going to the committee. This is all subject to review, but I mean, by imposing it as a condition, that means like staff are confident that they should hopefully be able to address it and like fulfill their conditions of the consent and get that application approved. If it was something that we had a major concern on, then we would be having major concerns or likely even a refusal. So that's why it's still a no concerns report. We'll just address it with conditions later on. So.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, is the ditching currently working on the site?
Well, we've maintained the ditching on the property and there has been no, to my knowledge, there have been no drainage or grading issues with the existing property or along that street, as long as the ditches are maintained. And I think that it's important to understand, and I think Member McLean's question was the pertinent one. If I applied for a building permit to rebuild that house to the extent that I could as of right, I would require a grading and drainage plan, but I would not require a stormwater management brief. And I would not be required to, I could have a peaked roof, I could have a flat roof as long as I maintained the grading and drainage according to the city's rules and regulations. Like that is what I would have. The difference here is I'm splitting, I'm now creating two lots. I would suggest the building footprint is less than the as of right building footprint, but now I'm required to provide a stormwater management brief, which drives stormwater solutions in a very different way than a maintaining a grading and drainage plan according to city standards. So it's a very, very different bar and not one you see often in a single family home neighborhood. So, and I think that's the point that we're trying to make.
Mr. Barrett, anything further? Okay, is right? Okay. Okay, so next step is to ask if there is anybody from the public that would like to speak on this application. Is there anybody online?
Yes, I'm here if I could speak.
Hello, Ms. Wilson.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get my okay, I'm from the City View Community Association, and I'd just like to comment on this. The City View ditch study has been going on for the last few years. We have fought for years and years to make sure that these ditches, because we have such flooding issues in our community, we've always fought to have this looked at, and they finally put this condition on, and it's across the board. And we've had other places that have had this condition, and they haven't had to have flat roofs. They've all met the condition. Normal houses have gone up without flat roofs, but it does protect the community because the ditches are getting filled in by these new infill houses. They're putting flat across the front with the driveways, not putting culverts in. So that's what this is all about, is making sure that that is considered when they're building and that they put that back in. And the ditch study is over the next 10 years. It starts this spring. I think they've been developing it, but they actually start the work on it this spring. I'm not sure, I don't have time to look up Oakridge right now and let you know, but you can see on the ditch study the problems for each house. And if you look at it, most of City View has problems. These ditches have been here for 50, 60, 70 years, and a lot of them have not been maintained by the city or by the people. And so there's a big problem. So they're trying to fix all of that. So that's why this is really important to have this condition on these houses, so that we can make this all work together for this ditch study. And even if you didn't have to come to Committee of Adjustment for severing a lot or putting two or reducing the lot size, even if it was a single family home that you were just putting back up again, you still have to make sure that that ditch was there. And I think at building permit stage, they would look at this and that condition would be there. I hope that helps you a little bit. Thank you.
It does. Thanks very much, Ms. Wilson.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else from the public like to speak? No? Does the panel have any questions for the public? Mr. Balls?
Yeah. Just very quickly, is it, Ms. Wilson, she's disappeared. Are you still there?
I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, good, okay. Is it currently legal to fill in the ditches in City View if you want to?
I don't think it is. They're not supposed to fill ditches in, but they get filled in. And the city has been working with this ditch study to try and, they're going to come and dig out all the ditches. And anybody that's building now has got to put a culvert in. And that's why this condition is there, to make sure that this is done properly, so that the ditch study isn't, or when they start working on it next year, they don't fix things and then people build with these flat driveways, which is, most of the new developments are doing that. They aren't putting in culverts, they aren't putting in the ditches, and that's, sometimes it's not their fault because they think it's flat everywhere else, but it's not. People have filled in ditches or they haven't been maintained. So
No, I understand how it's happening, but if it's not legal to do so, can't a call to or a complaint to 311 fix that? Would they not?
Nope. No.
No? So the
Nope.
city will not come in and enforce
well,
reopening the ditches.
because of this ditch study, they're basing everything on that. We've been calling and we've been asking, and we've said, like, these new houses, you should be telling them now that they need to put this in. And they said, once the ditch study comes, we'll have all that fixed. But now they're putting the condition on so that they don't have to go back and fix them. They're making people make sure that it's proper when they put it in.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that their city is unwilling to do anything until the ditch study is completed. That's
Correct.
what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, you're welcome.
Ms. Wilson, anybody else have any questions? Ms. McLean, that's right?
No.
Mr. Barrett? No questions. Thank you very much for your input, Ms. Wilson.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Okay, so now I would like to give the last word to Mr. Hume.
We'd happily accept maintaining the existing ditches and the culverts, which is what our grading and drainage plan would show, consistent with what Ms. Wilson has said. We don't believe that filling in the ditches is the right solution either. And as a result, we think we should be treated, as Ms. McLean alluded to, in the same way as a large single. Those conditions that are imposed on those developments should be the same that are imposed on ours. And we would submit that to the committee for their consideration.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'd like to ask the panel if they'd like to reserve this application. All those in favor to reserve, please raise your hands. We're going to reserve our decision and you'll get our answer in writing in the next 10 days. Thank you. You're welcome. Safe travels. Okay. So now we'll go back up to the top of the agenda. Item number 1 has to do with 45 David. I'm looking for remotely Mr. Mike Segreto. There he is.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members.
Good afternoon, sir. Would you like to give us a brief description of your application today?
Basically, what we have for you this afternoon is an application for severance and minor variance. And the variances that we're requesting today are basically for lot width, to reduce the lot width for both parcels for a 2-story single-family dwelling, which presently on one side of the existing lot right now on the existing parcel of land that we have is being constructed with 2 secondary units. The intention is to do the same thing on the newly created parcel, to have a single with 2 secondary units. The front variance that I'm requesting is 14.24 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum of 19.5 meters. And this is identical for parts 2 and 3 as for parts 1 and 2. So again, I'm going for lot width and I'm going for lot area. With the area, basically both lots, or parts 1 and 2, have an area of 414.2 square meters, where the bylaw requires 600 square meters. And for the other lot, basically it's 414.6 square meters. Again, 600 meters is requested. I have no issues with any of the conditions that are involved, but I've been listening very clearly to the stormwater management that people have been discussing with Peter Hume on his property on Oakridge. I've done some severances there as well. My understanding is that the stormwater management is something that has to be done in the St. Clair area, even though I don't totally agree with it, but I do understand that it is a necessary option that has to be done these days in that particular area, due to the fact that the ditches do get filled in every now and then. And what's happening right now, and I've been involved with numerous projects in the area on Tower, on Oakridge, that the ditches have been filled where actually culverts have to be put in, and the city is replacing some of these ditches that are filled in with culverts at the expense of the owners. I understand there's an issue there. We agree with it. With respect to my engineers and whatnot, I've been very successful in the fact that I have not had to change the roofs from slope roofs to flat roofs. And I believe it's something good for the community. We did speak with the community association, with Nancy and with and Jill, and we've discussed this application with them. I believe that this application is moving forward towards the infill policies, with provincial policies, with city policies, with the intensification. I think this application is desirable. I believe that planning is on board, and I believe this is a good development to move forward. That's my
Thank you,
presentation.
Mr. Segreto. I'd like to ask panel if they have any questions. Mr. Baltz?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. McLean? Ms. Wright?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, you're also being requested to provide a stormwater management brief,
That's correct.
correct?
That's correct.
And going back to, again, maybe reflecting on the previous discussion, how do you intend to
Well, the way I
deal with it on your property?
Well, the way I feel about it is I tend to agree with Mr. Hume in the sense that if I were to demolish the existing house and I were to build on the allowable building permit, I would be able to build a house there easily 5,000 square feet, where the stormwater management would not be requested. But in this particular case, where we are building two single-family dwellings, even though they may be 2,500 square feet, 2,700 square feet, the stormwater management is required. I understand that. And I also understand the fact that in that particular neighborhood, I have done many severances in this area over the years, at least 100 severances over the last 10, 15 years. And I acknowledge that there is issues with the storm there. And I think that with the proper engineering, it can be resolved, this stormwater management. And I have done it. I have already done, I would say, at least 10 applications with the stormwater management, with the severance of 2 new single-family dwellings. I think that's something that can be worked on. And I understand that sometimes, depending on the design of the house, that you may need to do a flat roof, but I've been very successful in my applications to the committee that with the slope roof, with the stormwater management, I have not had to change the slope roof. I've been okay with that. And I'm sympathetic to the fact with the community. I understand what they're going through. And at this stage of the game, I'm not opposing the stormwater management on my application. It is something that has to be done, and we will do it.
And so if you're not providing, we were told earlier that there were 2 solutions. One is the flat roof. The other one is to provide storage somewhere on the site. Are you having to do that?
We have done the stuff on storage on the site, on Oakridge for that matter. I've done it for the Genettis. We've done 2 bungalows on the Genettis. Those lots are very deep. They're 120 feet or something like that deep, or 130 feet deep. You can't store the water in the back. And what they do is the engineers, they put the proper weeping tile in the back, whether it's 6 inches or 8 inches, and then they store it in the back, and then they bring it all towards the front, towards the ditches in the front. This is the way, that's the approach that I have had and that I have had to deal with, and I've been successful at it, and it has happened. Those houses are being built right now as we speak. They're almost finished. So it can be stored on the site. The only thing is, I say, depending on the design of the house, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know what the other file is like, or what those houses are like. But I've been fortunate enough and successful enough that I have not had to do a flat roof. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Segreto. Now I'd like to move to planning services. And Ms. King, could you give us a few comments on this application?
Yeah, gladly. We have no concerns with this application, similar to what our previous discussion was. I will just note, because I was just trying to get in contact with our engineering colleagues, regarding with building permit, if let's say no applications are required, there is no controlling of swim requirements through building permit. However, that's because they're not intensifying. In these cases where they are intensifying, that's where we need to see these implications. They also forward me that these proposals in these areas that involve that significant increase of lot coverage, we have to ensure that they're accommodated with an engineering study demonstrating the pre and post development drainage flows are the same or less than until the new drainage bylaw is in place, and that positive drainage is maintained and enhanced through the system. So kind of, I know we keep, these conversations are kind of blending in together, but that's just to give you guys a bit more on that one, but happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Mr. Baltz, any questions for Ms. King? No, Ms. McLean? Ms. Wright?
No.
Mr. Barrett? No. No questions, okay. Then I guess the last word goes to you, Mr. Segreto.
Based on the information that I've given you and the variances that are in front of you, I believe that these variances are minor, they're desirable, they're in keeping with the zoning bylaw, and it's enhancing the intensification which is being enforced by the provincial policies and the city policies. I think it's good development. I think this will be a very good project to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, Mr. Chair, I did forget to do one thing.
Sure.
May I ask Mr. Segreto? So we did receive one letter with concerns about parking, which I don't think we need to address, but also to the number of additional units. Can you just confirm that the 3 units total is allowed as of right under the zoning?
With respect to that, yes, you're absolutely right. In any R1 zone today, technically, you're allowed 2 secondary units. So we are not doing anything in respect to against the bylaw or whatever. Everything is in conformity with the bylaw, and we're allowed to do the 2 secondary units on this project.
So the number of units is not before us today. Thank you.
No, it isn't.
Thank you, Mr. Baltz. I did forget to look to the public and see if Nancy Wilson would like to make a comment or two on this application.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. We'd like to acknowledge that we were sent all the documents, including the plans, and have spoken with the agent, Mr. Segreto, for this developer. We thank them for their open communication. We can always talk to them about things. We're also pleased that these new builds have front yard parking, which is consistent with our neighborhood. The rear yard parking that has been recently allowed in our communities creates negative impacts on our properties, including substantial decrease in permeable surfaces for drainage. I'm not going to read all this stuff about that they don't meet the frontage and the lot area. We know that. And we know that that's not really going to be an issue, except that these lots are less than the 50-foot that we're getting used to. I think they're 46 feet. Anyway, one of the things that came up during the building of the new one that's going up now is it seems really high. We've had a lot of complaints about the excessive height of the new building. We're not sure if it's because on both sides there's bungalows. And we've asked a few times for the city bylaw to investigate it to make sure that it is I think it's 8.29 meters, and they can go up to 8.5. We just wanted to confirm with the city planner that this building height is within the allowable amount. We also have an issue with the privacy in the back, or we've had comments about the privacy in the back because of the balcony. We talked to Mr. Segreto about this, and they're putting sides on so that it's more private. But we were worried about the house directly in the back. So we just wanted to make sure that those balconies are legal also. The drainage, I'm not going to go into this whole thing, but as per the city planner's report, okay, the city neighborhood has known drainage issues. So we've just talked about that. We don't have storm sewers infrastructure here. We have ditches. Our ditches are really in bad shape right now. This ditch study that they're working on is a 10-year plan. They're starting to work on it this spring, and we're going to try and get things fixed up. They're going to the worst areas first, which is over that David Drive, Cantor, in that area. So this house may be in the first go round. So we know that the ditch, we know that you're going to put that condition on, so that's fine. And we just wanted to make sure that a culvert will be put in there. Other infrastructure, the official plan recognizes when areas are intensified, other infrastructure such as parkland, sidewalks, school capacity, traffic, walkability require updating and improvements. Yet here in City View, there is virtually no parks, no sidewalks, overcapacity schools, and major traffic issues, particularly on surrounding major roads of Clyde, Maryville, and Baseline. Before any density is added here, we need the promised updating and improvements to support all of these additional populations. Other communities are being improved. Why not City View? We'd also like to support other concerns heard from neighbors. The addition of 6 units will increase the traffic in the area. These new builds are directly across from the street, the Nepean Museum and the Jays Care baseball field. And I know this is just a comment, because I know there's nothing we can do about it today, but there is a lot of parking there for the baseball games and for the museum. So it's just something to make sure that they have room in their driveways. And I also just wanted to read quickly, I'll have to stop this. One of our community members sent this to us today. And she said, I'm just going to read what she said because she wanted me to put this forward. She said, although it may be too late, I'm forwarding my concerns with multiple units being built at 45 David Drive. I understand and support the province's desire to densify the population in areas closer to transit, shops, and services. However, I think some key areas need to be kept in mind when approving units that will they'll have multiple people living in one space. These concerns are as follows. Infrastructure. Is the city ensuring that the infrastructure such as sewers and water systems are able to support an increase in the neighborhood? There is already a water pressure issue in City View. Will it be made worse by more people using water in the same area?
1
Traffic
minute left, Ms. Wilson.
Yeah, I'm almost done. Traffic
Okay.
parking. The city is reviewing the allotted spaces being provided for tenants of multiple units or any houses for that matter to ensure that on-street parking is limited. In the case of 45 David Road, the area is very congested at different times of the year with baseball diamond and park across the street. Parking becomes very difficult without sidewalks and it can be hazardous for pedestrians. Also, this lot is close to an intersection of Rowley, which is a two-way stop. Drivers come down the hill on David, do not have a stop sign and more traffic around that area, plus more cars. It will become more dangerous for pedestrians. So I'm just passing that on from a neighbor. And those are concerns that we have in that area, but probably not concerns that can be addressed today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Okay, any questions for Ms. Wilson? Mr. Barrett, Ms. Wright, Ms. McLean, Mr. Baltz? No questions? Okay, great. Mr. Segreto, I'm going to ask the panel if they'd like to make a decision today or reserve. All those in favor to reserve this application, please raise your hands. So your application is going to be reserved today. You'll get notification of our decision in 10 days. And I'd like you to stick around because we'll do Queensdale, your next application, instead of having you coming back and going back and forth.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next item is with Mr. Segreto. It is item number 6, and it has to do with 1517 Queensdale Road. And let's see. Where's my here? Okay. Can you give us a brief description of your application today, Mr. Segreto?
Again, in this particular neighborhood, which is the Blossom Park area, we have an oversized lot, and what the intention is to sever it. The father has passed away, and the children are now inheriting this property. So what they'd like to do is sever the land, and one of the children wants to build on one side, and then on the other side, they want to create a new lot. In this particular case, when you're looking at it, part 1 will have a substantial frontage and a lot area of if I look at it right here, a 30 meters, 30.48 meters with 929 square meters, and the newly created lot would have a minimum lot width of 15.24 meters with an area of 464, which exceeds the requirement. The requirement for a new lot is actually 9 meters, and we're providing 15.24. And with respect to the area, the required lot is 450, and we're providing 469. So the lots meet the criteria for creating a new lot with no variances at all. The issue what stands here is that my client would like to build himself a 2-story single-family dwelling. In order to do this 2-story single-family dwelling, there are some implications with respect to the trees that are in the back, which are red maple trees. And some of these trees are impacting the building envelope of the house, and my client would like to remove these trees. Unfortunately, forestry has some comments on it, and they would like us to move the house off to one side or possibly redesign it. What I would like the committee to consider here today is not to consider the single-family dwelling that is being built, because that can always be changed down the road with respect to the building permit application. A building permit will not be assigned until all requirements with respect to trees are met and whatnot. What I'd like the committee to do is look at the fact that the 2 lots that are being created, the new lot that is being created and the retained lot, they meet the bylaw. And if the severance could be approved today, that would be great for us. And then I can deal with the city at the time of building permit with redesigning the house in order to somehow protect those trees by reducing the house and negotiating some back and forth with forestry. So I would like the committee, if they could, look at it from that point of view that, the lots do conform to the zoning bylaw. We're in front of this committee here today, and then I would leave it up to the committee to decide if this severance can go through. That is basically my presentation.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to now move on to panel and ask the panel if they have any questions. Ms. Wright, do you have any questions for Mr. Segreto?
No, I do not.
Mr. Barrett, do you have any questions?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, with regards to the conditions, condition 3 was one that I believe you had not agreed with, or the grading and servicing plan. Could you speak to that, please?
Okay, so the grading and servicing plan, I think that was a misunderstanding, because grading and servicing is pretty common. We'll provide the grading plan, the servicing plan, separate sewers, as long as they don't straddle the newly created lot or whatever. I think it was basically the tree that we were opposing. They were asking us about the tree and the back, and I think that tree is a fairly tall tree, and it is very, very close to the house. And my clients had some concern with that, with digging the new foundation and whatnot, disrupting the root system and everything, the canopy of it. And this is why I ask that the severance itself is the severance, and I can deal with the city's buildings branch to redesign this house so it would be able to fit on this lot at a later date.
Thank you.
Ms. McLean, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just follow up, Mr. Segreto, just on my colleague's question. So condition 2 and 3, is that what you're asking us to look at, or?
Condition 2, provide a tree planting prepared. That I think we can add additional trees if that's what condition 2 is. I don't have an issue with adding or planting new trees on the site. And what was the other condition, Ms. McLean?
So is it condition 3 then that you're asking us to remove?
No, condition 3 is located based on the least impact to trees as well as our pressure. Yeah, that one there is the one that's affecting the house, right?
I
Correct?
just wanted that clarification. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Baltz, any questions?
Yeah, I'm still not clear. So are you asking us to omit condition 3?
What I'm asking is, I will deal at the time of building permit with that tree. The condition, because I know I have to deal with forestry on that tree. Forestry is asking us to maintain that tree in the back. And what I'm saying is that we will do as best we can to maintain that tree. And I don't think I will be able to get a building permit unless I resolve that issue of the tree with forestry. That's all I'm saying.
It seems to me that's what condition 3 is saying.
Yeah,
It
so-
says for the least impact to protected trees, if forestry and you reach the agreement that it can't be protected, that would be in the building permit state. So can't condition 3 stand?
Yes, it can. Yes, it,
Okay, thank
leave
you.
it as it is, yeah.
And all other conditions then are acceptable to the applicant?
I'm fine with those, yeah. I'm fine with the balance, yeah.
Great, thank you. Now I'd like to ask Elizabeth King from Planning Services to make some comments with respect to this application.
Of course. So we have no concerns with the consent aside from the forestry concerns that have been brought up. I don't really have much further to say, but I might, if it's best, I can pass it on to Julian Alvarez Barkham, which I believe he is online. If you guys do want to get straight into the tree discussion, or if you guys want to direct questions, I'll leave that up to you guys.
We're gonna go direct questions, so I'll
Okay.
start with Mr. Barrett. Do you have any questions for Ms. King? No. Okay, Ms. Ray? No. Ms. McLean, Mr. Baltz?
I guess my only question is, if condition 3 is in there, do you still have some concerns, or does that take care of it?
I might need to get Julian to answer that question because it is a condition imposed by forestry staff. He's probably the best person to answer you on
Through you,
that.
Mr. Chair, can we do that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Julian is.
He's there.
He's right there in the bottom right-hand side of my screen. Mr. Alvarez Barkham, please comment on that question from Mr. Baltz.
Yeah, condition 3 is there to basically resolve the design issue.
So the
that
agent
addresses the
is
concern.
happy with that. So is planning staff and tree and forestry, correct?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, that's great. Now I'd like to ask if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak to this application. Anyone online? We don't have anyone from the public to speak to this application. Therefore, I'm going to go to Mr. Segreto and ask him for the last few words.
I think I've made it fairly clear. We're willing to work with the city with respect to trying to preserve the tree in the back. We'll come back with some sort of design that can protect that tree. With respect to the severance, I think we meet all the criteria. And I think it's good intensification for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segreto. All right, so I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to reserve on this application. All those in favor to reserve, please raise your hands. This application, Mr. Segreto, is going to be reserved, so that means in 10 days you'll get our written response. Thank you very much for your input. It's been very helpful today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. So the last application we'll hear today has to do with item number 5, 3636 Innes Road, looking for a Nico Church, Janessa Bates, Melissa Patton, and Brian Casagrande.
Mr. Chair, there's still item 4 as well.
Is there item 4? No, I crossed it off. I thought it was adjourned. Okay, I'll come back to that one. Okay, come on and sit down. Sorry about that.
Mr. Chair, which are we doing item 5 now?
We're doing item number 5 right now. I'll get
Okay.
back to number 4 in just a
Thank you,
minute.
Mr. Chair.
So who's the lead? If you'd please state your name.
Sure, I'll start. My name is Nico Church. I'm a senior planner with FOTEN at 420 O'Connor Street. With me is Janessa Bates, also from FOTEN, and Melissa Pettum from Glenview Homes, who would be the purchaser of the property to be severed today. So we're happy to go through a presentation if you'd like. We did mostly have concerns with one
condition, and I know we've gone back and forth with city staff on some of the other conditions which they've agreed to remove. So we're happy to launch into a discussion of the conditions right now. If you'd prefer that we provide you with a presentation providing an overview of the application, we are also happy to do that.
Okay, before we begin, we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. So the initial zoning was IL2H bracket 14 and IL2H bracket 14H. And it's been changed to AM10 square bracket 2986 and IL2 square bracket 2987. Do you agree with that?
I do agree. For the new zones, there are height limits as well. So it's AM10 2986 H 13.5 and IL2 H 14 with the exception as well, 2987.
Okay. Okay, great. So can you please, no, yeah. So go ahead, give us a brief description of the application today. That'd be great.
I'll hand that off to Janessa. And if you could put the slides up, we did send some slides over to the coordinator.
So just reminded Janessa that we've got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Set to go? Okay.
Yep. Good.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Janessa Bates, and I'm a planner with Photon Planning and Design. As Nico stated before, I'm joined with Nico and Melissa Patton from Glenview Homes. Thus today we're acting as agents for the consent application before you, representing U-Haul, the owner of the subject lands, and Glenview, who aim to purchase the parcel to be severed. The owner is seeking to sever the existing parcel of land into 2 separate parcels, and the subject property is outlined in the previous slide. So the subject lands are located in the Orleans neighborhood of the city of Ottawa and front onto Innes Road, a designated Main Street corridor in the suburban transect. The property is a total lot area of 3.43 hectares. The property was previously subject to a zoning bylaw amendment, as we noted earlier, which came into full force in effect on December 3rd. The property is split zoned, as we covered previously. So next slide, please. So the property is currently occupied by a U-Haul self-storage and truck rental facility, as seen in the picture on the left, and a temporary sales center on the eastern portion of the lot pictured on the right. Next slide, please. The owner of the property is proposing to sever the existing lot into 2 separate parcels. Both lots front onto the public street and comply with the zoning provisions. The proposed severance would facilitate the legal sale of the severed lot 3646 Innes Road. The proposed severed parcel would have a total lot area of approximately 0.11 hectares and a lot width of 30.67 meters. The retained parcel would have a total lot area of 3.32 hectares and a total lot width of 118 meters. The proposed severed parcel and retained parcels are individually connected to municipal services. Next slide, please. So it is in our professional opinion that a plan of subdivision is not required, and the proposal meets the criteria for lot division established in section 51, subsection 24 of the Planning Act. The proposed severance resulting in a severed and retained lands is consistent with the provincial planning statement, is not premature, is within the public interest, conforms with the official plan, is suitable for the proposed severance, will have adequate frontage on the public street, will have appropriate lot dimensions and shapes, comply with the City of Ottawa zoning bylaw, and has adequate municipal services. Next slide, please. So as outlined in our cover letter and shown in the previous slides, it's our professional opinion the consent application meets the criteria for land division. It's our opinion that the application is appropriate for the subject property and constitutes good planning, as well as it is in the public interest. Next slide, please. So thank you for your time and consideration. And we can answer any questions, or as Nico stated, move forward to the conditions.
Okay, we're gonna have the panel see if they'd like to ask some questions of the applicant. Mr. Baltz, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Me? Okay.
Just faking you out.
Yeah, so do we want to discuss the conditions that you oppose now?
I think I'd like to see if there's any questions directly related to the
Is the thing?
presentation.
Okay.
Okay, and
that's
then
fine.
we can move
All
on.
right, no, I'll wait. Thank you.
Ms. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just was looking for a plan of survey or a reference plan showing the location of the buildings and the proposed and their distances to the proposed severance line. Is that plan available? Was that filed?
We do have a plan of survey. I'm not sure that we would have filed it with the committee. We did file an R plan. The plan of survey we did carefully look at to ensure that the zoning, which was recently approved, that we were creating a legally compliant lot condition. So we have looked at the placement of the buildings.
So generally, that would be something that we would look at when we're being asked to create a proposed severance line, a property line, is to make sure that there's buildings aren't being intersected or that there's side yards, and I'm going to ask planning that as well, whether the side yards comply with the, I guess, the new zoning. But typically, that's a policy, I think, of the committee to have that type of plan in front of them, but I'll just leave it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, do you have any questions? Mr. Barrett? No. Okay. Now moving on to planning services. Ms. Einkaran, can you please make some comments with respect to this application?
Thank you, Chair. Staff have no concerns with the application, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. Ms. McLean, any questions for staff?
So I'll just ask the planning staff then, if you can confirm or if you know whether or not the setbacks for the existing buildings comply with the new zoning or?
Can I take one moment?
Yes, certainly.
If I may, Chair, just to add to discussion, if that's okay. We do, in the cover letter, we do provide a zoning compliance table. There's also a little bit of a history with this file in that we filed for zoning approval prior to getting consent approval. And through that, we looked very closely at the zoning and confirmed that any kinds of zoning conditions were taken care of through the zoning bylaw amendment. My colleague Brian Casagrande is online. There is a possibility for him to share his screen and show the plan of survey that we have on file. I do apologize. In front of you, we do have the R plan that was submitted. So we do have a plan of survey, just not in front of you. And again, there's been a history of looking closely at this.
Okay. Would you like to see that, Ms. McLean?
Well, I think I'd like assurances that first of all, the proposed severance line isn't intersecting any of the buildings. And then secondly, that the yard requirements are being met. And I know that draft reference plans and registered R plans typically don't show location of buildings. That's why we like to see the location building survey plan with the proposed severance line showing. Because if we needed to demolish a building or that would be a condition. So I'm just looking for that type of information to have that comfort level, I think.
Mr. Casagrande, can you provide that type of information for Ms. McLean?
I certainly can try, Mr. Chair. I have the share button here and I have it open, so odds are good that it'll come on your screen if you allow me that. Does it have the authority automatically here, or does it have to be given to me?
I don't know. Let me just check with our.
Said send a
Staff.
request. I just did that, so. Oh, it says I can. Okay, let me see here.
Great.
Is that coming up?
Yep. See it now.
There, Ms. McLean. So you'll see the dimensions are noted all the way along the existing metal building. And then they've got a series of sheds that I think are movable sheds. But Mr. Church is right. We actually made sure that the site-specific exception represented the closest distance. I think it's 1.68 there to the property line. So I can even try and bring up the zoning if you need.
So Mr. Cass, is there a building on the other parcel?
There is. It wasn't picked up, I guess, on this survey. I don't know if Nico knows. Maybe it predates the building. That would be my guess. But that building is a it's like all of this was vetted through the zoning process. That I know because it took us a while to get through it. I don't know if staff are able to confirm that for you.
So I think that's what I'm looking for, is some kind of confirmation from, I guess, the planning department that there's no zoning issues or no buildings straddling the proposed severance lot.
And I guess what, Ms. McLean, one thing I could suggest if we can't get this is you could put that as a condition that any building that doesn't meet the zoning would need to be resolved or removed prior to execution of the severance. And then if somebody messed up, they'd have to deal with that.
I quickly checked the zoning and it appears that the buildings on the property on the retained lot and the severed lot, they seem to meet the side yard setbacks requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Mr. Baltz, you have any questions? No? Okay. So now I'd like to ask the public if they have any comments to make with respect to this application. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to make any comments remotely? No, we do not have anyone that would like to make any comments from the public. In that case, then I'd like to give the applicant the opportunity for the last word.
What about the conditions, Mr. Chair?
Oh, good point. Yeah, forgot. I thought we were done. Sorry. So the conditions, so you don't agree with any of the conditions or just a few?
Just a few of them, Chair. Actually, well, we had concerns with a few conditions, and through further correspondence with city staff, they have agreed to remove some of those conditions. I don't know if that's reflected in your latest correspondence.
Which ones do you believe have been eliminated? So I'll read them to you.
Okay.
Cash in lieu is the first one. Second one is compliance with OBC limited distance separation requirements. Number 3 is independent services. Number 4 is extension of municipal services. Number 5, notice on title, warning of environmental noise in this road as an arterial road. 18.75 meters road widening. Number 7 is 5 meters by 15 meter corner triangle, a grading and drainage plan, and site servicing. And there are 2 standard conditions: a registered reference plan confirming frontage and lot area of the severed lands, and electronic registration and preparation documents for certificate of official.
So, Mr. Chair, looking at the conditions that planning staff were looking to include as part of this approval, it's my understanding that they have agreed to remove conditions 4, 7, and 9. So conditions 4 and 9 have to do with servicing both properties, and we provided them with a serviceability report. Condition 7 has to do with a corner site triangle on the retained lands. And it's our opinion that this is not the proper avenue to take those lands, since there's no other development taking place on the retained lands. So it's my understanding the city staff have agreed again to remove conditions 4, 7, and 9. If that is the case, then there's only one other condition that we have concerns with.
Okay, just let me ask planning if they agree with the removal of those 3 conditions. Do you agree, Ms. Karan?
Yes, Chair, we are in agreement with
Okay,
removing
so
4, 7,
we are
and
not
9.
dealing with items 4, 7, or 9 as conditions. What about the condition that Mr. Casagrande added in to satisfy Ms. McLean's questions? Good with that?
Yes, we're okay with that. I think we've proven that that we are compliant, and we've taken a very close look at it. If the committee is so inclined to include it, we would have no objections to it.
Mr. Casagrande, could you send us the wording that you suggested for that condition? And we'll
Yeah,
add that in.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Okay, so what's the one you disagree with now?
Chair, it's condition number 5. It relates to a noise warning clause, which I can appreciate city staff's intent here. Innes Road is a very busy, noisy road. That being said, I'm concerned that the imposition of this condition would create quite a burden for the applicant to have to go through a development agreement with the city. Having worked on various development applications, I'm aware that there can be a bit of a backlog with city legal services. And to be honest, this is a condition that can be dealt with down the road through either site plan control approval or a plan of subdivision application. Most likely, this would be redeveloped with a site plan control application with the current thresholds in place not to require site plan. For this particular piece of property, I would be shocked to see an underdevelopment that does not require site plan control. Our recent rezoning application considered a mixed-use building with 30 units, which would be far and above what is required to trigger site plan control. And in that case, that was actually a bit of a conciliatory attempt to resolve the zoning. We felt professionally comfortable with proposing more density on the site. So with that in mind, I think this is most likely a condition that's going to be captured through a future site plan control application. And in any case, for anyone who would be moving or living adjacent to Innes Road, I'd say it's not exactly a surprise that the conditions there will be quite noisy.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Church? Mr. Bolts?
I mean, we see these noise conditions all the time. It's a standard condition. I'm not quite sure why on this particular application, it's somehow onerous.
I think the concern through you, Chair, is again that it's going through a development agreement with the city that it involves city legal services, which does carry with it burdens of cost and especially of time for what's otherwise, in my opinion, a relatively simple consent application. I will note the applicant is okay with providing some sort of noise warning clause on agreements of purchase and sale. I think it's more so what we see as onerous is entering into a development agreement with the city that we feel is again particularly burdensome.
So they're asking for a notice on title.
It just says notice on title, which I don't think is a development agreement, is it?
The condition as worded through your chair says that the city, that the applicant is to enter into a development agreement with the city. I'm happy to be corrected if wrong.
I don't see that. Ms. Einkrantz, are they to enter into a development agreement with the city?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the condition does say that the owner must enter into an agreement with the city. And I believe Ms. Wendy C is here to give more comments on the condition.
What condition is that?
The noise study, sorry, the noise warning clause,
What number?
number 5.
5, notice on warning title, noise. Okay. I don't see that there's a really big issue in my mind that it's going to be on title, and that's just to warn the potential purchasers that there's exactly an issue with
And-
noise.
Again, Chair, if I may, our issue is not with having the noise warning on title. It's that the condition is worded that says that the owner enter into an agreement with the city. We feel like that's an unnecessary burdensome step that has to go through city legal review. We'd be happy even with an amended condition that speaks to registering it on title or on future purchase and sale agreements. It's that the owner enter into an agreement with the city that we're concerned with.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Mr. Baltz? Ms. McLean?
I'm not sure what the method is to put a noise warning clause on title. You have to enter into with somebody to register something on the title to a property. So how do you, so what you're proposing, how does that play out?
Through your chair, it would simply be through future agreements of purchase and sale, which would perhaps be a more appropriate method.
Sorry, how do you enforce that? Like how, if it becomes a condition, you have to fulfill the condition before the property is deeded over. So how do you fulfill a noise warning clause in an agreement of purchase and sale? We're talking to each individual owner of the condo, or is that or the apartment or the?
No, there's through your chair, there's no apartment that's currently proposed. So it would be through a future purchaser, and certainly down the road, we'd be looking at having that particular clause for potentially future residents here, but that would be most likely again through a future site plan control application. So unfortunately, I'm not a legal expert. I can't speak to how exactly it would be done. But just from our initial review of it, it seems to be somewhat onerous.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we do have Wendy C online from the planning department.
Good morning or good afternoon, Ms. C. Do you have any
Afternoon.
comments to make on this application and this particular condition?
Oh, just to, thank you, Mr. Chair, just to reiterate that because this is the first application that's before us, this is why we put this condition at this point in time. Mr. Church is correct that once it becomes a site plan application, we would probably have a very similar clause in the site plan agreement. We would have no objection if this becomes a clause in a purchase and sale agreement. So we're willing to remove it as from a development agreement because there's no other reason to have a development agreement for this application.
So are you suggesting we remove condition number 5 then?
That it becomes a condition of purchase and sale. So basically a notice for future owners.
Okay, great. Thank you for your input. Anybody have any questions for Ms. C? Ms. McLean?
I'm not sure how a notice, a warning clause notice that's supposed to go into an agreement of purchase and sale. Is that the agreement of purchase and sale between U-Haul and between Glenview? Or is it the warning clause between prospective purchasers down the road? I'm not comfortable in how this gets played out.
Ms. C, can you help?
I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer either, but I believe that if my understanding is that there's that Glenview will be purchasing this property. Correct me if I'm incorrect. So that it would be that purchase and sale agreement that would have this warning clause.
Through you, Chair, if I may, we could provide evidence to the committee in the form of a draft purchase and sale agreement that includes wording to the effect of this of this noise condition.
Do you potentially have 30 purchasers, correct?
Not at this time, Chair. It would be one purchaser currently. There's no development plans that are on the table aside from the consent application before you.
Now, you suggested
So-
it was going to be a mixed use property. Is it going to be retail on the ground floor and above that residential?
It's quite possible. We have rezoned the property to be able to accommodate that. It is an arterial main street zone right now. The rezoning was particularly to proceed with the severance approval. But at this time, there are no specific development plans that are before the committee or before the city, again, aside from this consent application.
Okay. Any further questions, Ms. McLean?
I'm just not, so the agreement of purchase and sale between U-Haul and Glenview would have a clause in there? Is that what you're saying? And how does that condition get fulfilled before we sell it before the deed comes in for stamping?
Through your chair, and again, without having a legal background, we could provide evidence to the committee that the agreement of purchase and sale that is to be entered into between the two parties includes that specific language relating to a noise warning clause along Innes Road.
Mr. Balch, you have another question?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering what the intent of all of this is, because the purchaser is sitting right here, correct? So obviously they have been warned. I think the issue to me would be subsequent purchasers of condos or someone who develops that land and then rents it. Do the people who live there somehow get a warning that it's a noisy place before they buy or move in? Right? It's not the developer who's going to develop it as part of this application. It's the next iteration down. I don't know what you or planning say about that.
Through you, Chair, it comes back to my earlier point that most likely this property will require a site plan control to be developed with something that is actually financially feasible on this property. And through the site plan control application, that's when the city can also impose this noise warning clause at that time.
And planning staff would be okay with this scheme. Oops, Ms. Say has her hand up. Maybe that's.
Yes, Ms. Say.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to confirm, Mr. Church, yes, through the site plan application for, it's typical for development that requires a noise clause that we do have as a condition of site plan approval, the condition similar to what we see before us today, that kind of condition carries on for future owners. So it is a typical condition.
Can we just delete condition 5 since we have the purchaser sitting in front of us here and let site plan take care of issues that are further down from our jurisdiction? I mean, is number 5 needed is my question at this point.
It could be taken, well, it would be taken care of through a site plan application. I guess we're just more comfortable because this is the first application before us for this site that we felt that it would be prudent to identify it here. But as the committee wishes, we're confident that it will also show up in a site plan agreement.
Anything further, Mr. Baltz?
No, just, I mean, we can discuss it. I assume it's going to be reserved, but to me, this is a redundant, a useless condition that we're imposing now, given that the real impact will be at site plan and the purchaser who would be notified is sitting in front of us. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Mr. Barrett? Ms. Ray?
No.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to ask if there are any other Comments by the public? Is there anybody from the public? No one here? Okay, so there's no comments from the public. So you have the last word then, Mr. Church.
Thank you, Chair. So just to summarize, we are professionally of the opinion that this consent application represents good planning. It creates retained and severed lands that are that meet all the policies under Section 5124 of the Planning Act when considering subdivision of lands, including but not limited to conformance with the official plan, compliance with the zoning bylaw, including for the existing buildings. And that both lots are accessed by municipal streets and already independently serviced. We thank you for your time and we look forward to hearing the committee's decision.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to reserve on this application. All those in favor of reserving, please raise your hands. The application will be reserved for 10 days and you'll get our written confirmation of our decision.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, I apologize to Crystal McConkey. We are going to deal with your application right now. It has to do with item number 499 Terry Fox. Ms. McConkey, are you available?
Apologies. Yes, I am. There was sort of a bit of a lag when I was made a participant. It says that I cannot start my video. Hold on. Oh, the host has stopped my ability to start my video, so I'm gonna. Oh, here we go.
We can hear you, no problem.
Okay, and here I am.
Yes, hello. So I think we understand the basis of this application. Do you have any comments you want to make? I mean, I'm looking at this, I'm in this business a little bit myself. And I'm looking at the length of the lease of the beer store is 35 years.
Yes.
It was originally started on August 1st, 2001.
Correct.
So 23 years have passed.
Yes.
We only got 12 years left.
Yes.
Okay. Similarly, at the Bank of Montreal, there are 40 years of a lease. 23 have passed and 17 are left.
That is correct. Although I do want to just make sure, at this point in time, the client doesn't have any further options of renewal with their tenants, but certainly wants the ability to maintain these tenancies should it work for both the tenant and the client.
Right. Okay. All right. Any further comments? That's just my initial one. No?
No, I think it's fairly straightforward. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I do know that the staff report that is before you did note some concerns, but I will defer to Ms. Jeku Ankaran just to confirm for you that staff no longer have any concerns with the applications.
Okay. I'd like to ask the panel if they have any questions on this application. Mr. Barrett? No. Ms. Wright? No questions for you then? Okay, I'd like to move to Ms. Ankaran and see if you've got any comments to make on this application.
Thank you, Chair. The initial concerns in my report was because the length of the lease was not specified, but we have received information about the lease length and we no longer have any concerns with the application.
Okay, great. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Barrett? Ms. Wright?
No.
Ms. McLean? Mr. Bulks? Nope, no questions. Now I'd like to ask the public if they have any comments to make. Is there anybody in the public? Nope, we do not have any public comments. Okay, so the last item is to give you the last word, Ms. McConkey.
Nothing but to say thank you to the staff for their support through the application process.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel if they'd like to reserve on this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Your application will be reserved. You'll receive written notification of our decision in 10 days.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Thank everybody for your help for this past year. This is our last panel 2 meeting of the year. So thanks everybody and I look forward to seeing you in the new year.